You wake up eager to meet your new starter and set off on your journey into the Uma Musume region. Saying goodbye to your father, who is acting, how you'd expect Rudolph to act. You leave your house unsure what challenges and adventures await you and your new Pokémon. Whether they'll blast off to the glue factory, or, if perhaps just maybe, they'll take you all the way to becoming the final champion. Hello, I am Vampire Vermin, and today we will be discussing the main gym leaders and Elite Four members that make up this new region. First of all, I do believe Tokateo would be the main protagonist of this new region, mainly because I never finished season 1 of the anime. Sorry, special week. But also, I do think Tokateo looks like Victini, which I don't think makes her any more of a protagonist. It's just a fact I wanted to mention, because I don't know if anyone else has noticed this, but Victini is literally doing Tokateo's winning pose. There's a similarity there. So, having now left Agnes Takuyan's lab, you are now ready to face your first gym leader. And in most first gyms, they act as a way to teach a trainer about crucial type matchups against common types such as rock, normal, bug. But I ignored this, so for the first gym, it will be the Fairy Gym, with the gym leader being none other than the shining star of losers everywhere, Haru Urara. Now, I thought about making her a normal type gym leader, as her design motifs most resemble Whitney's, but the fact that the real life Haru Urara wore a Hello Kitty mask, and well, her whole race and outfit is almost entirely pink, makes me lean towards the fairy typing. Her team would consist of Flabebe for the pink cherry blossoms in her eyes, and the Eevee that eventually turned into Sylveon, as Haru Urara acts as a mascot for the Koshi racecourse, and is one of the most recognizable Umas, so it only makes sense that she'd have a Pokemon that's appeared as one of the main mascots for the franchise. Finally, her ace would be Jigglypuff, as, well, she does look like water. Also, in cosigns with the Umas not only act as racers but also idols, so it's reasonable to assume she'd have a Pokemon primarily known for singing on her team. After having received the soft Kiba badge from Haru, your next challenge will be in the form of the dimensional runner herself, Silent Susuka. Here, she'll act as a grass type gym leader, as for me, the grass type has always represented a more reserved, more quiet energy in comparison to other types, which fits well with Susuka's more reserved nature within the anime. For her team, she'll have a Hisuian Voltorb, as its evolved form is one of the fastest Pokemon, with a base speed of 150, which coincides with her being a frontrunner and have a high aptitude for speed. After this, the next Pokemon team would be a Swadloon, as it represents that more introverted nature of the grass type, but in a much stroppier, almost teenage form expected in the middle evolution, with the way it's curving itself in its leaves, which I currently relate to because I have the flu, so I'm currently curling myself in bed. So I believe Susuka would have one because it represents that part of her introverted personality. The final Pokemon on our team would be Deerling, as I do believe Deerling and Susuka do look similar to Haru and Jigglypuff, which might not be the most creative reasoning, but I was originally going to make Grass Wonder the gym leader, as she has grass in her name, so it could have been worse. But both Deerling and Swadloon have the ability Chlorophyll, which increases the user's speed in the sun, which again fits Susuka's strategy, going at full speed out the gate and holding that position to the finish line. The question would then be where we can outpace our Pokemon and earn yourself the Takarazuka Kinen badge. After Silent Susuka is an Uma who run a Wattpad account like a Cinevi, Rice Shower, who is one of my favorite Umas, which apparently is a very popular opinion, despite the emotional turmoil her career run takes you through. This gym was specialised in the Dark type, as it is a type commonly used across the evil teams of all regions, and is actually named the Evil type rather than the Dark type in Japan. In horse racing, Rice Shower, like the Dark type, was perceived as a villainous figure. The main reason for this was her race wins against Mahono Bourbon and Majiro McQueen, preventing them from earning the Triple Crown and a third consecutive win in the Spring 10 show respectively. Therefore, I believe much of her team would consist of Pokemon that have prominently appeared on evil teams before. For this reason, Murkrow and Ponyard would act as the first two adversaries you'd face. In the case of Murkrow, its evolution line was utilised by the Sinnoh Team Galactic leader Cyrus, whilst Ponyard appears on the teams of the Shadow Triad and Unova. The Shadow Triad also pay homage to Raishar's nickname of the Black Assassin, with this group acting as a pseudo-ninja assassin group in the service of Getsus. Raishar's ace would be none other than Absol, the disaster Pokemon whose Pokedex entry reads that it appears when it senses an impending natural disaster. As a result, it was mistaken as a Doombringer.
Thus, with Roussel being forced into the role of an evil heel by horse racing fans, it makes sense that the two of them would end up together to defy the false perceptions placed upon them.
So, having now earned 3 badges, those being the Soft Keyboard badge, the Takarazuka Kinen badge, and the Kukusho badge, you are now ready to fight the unsinkable battleship, the White Devil, Bugcatcher Golshi. The reason why I made her Bug-type gym leader, other than the headcanon I had that she'd be a Route 1 trainer along with Joey and the bug catchers, and later on a gym leader you'd face, which is maybe not a twist anyone is asking for, like one of your parents being a champion, but rather the reason why I assigned this type to her is her voice line of her going to the Philippines to go bug catching. Her team would consist of a charger bug as it looks like a Rubik's Cube, a low kick who knows double kick for the many concussions Golshi was given, and finally her ace would be a Scolipede, as I think Golshi would see Scolipede and think it's a horse.
Peter, the horse is here.
Oh yeah.
But honestly, trying to get into Golship's head is like trying to crack into the Da Vinci Code. I feel like you could put any type of Pokemon on her team and find a reason for why it's there. Moving on from Golshi's bug types and having received the Satsuki Show badge, you'd be faced with a Uma from the Bluegrass State, famous for its fried chicken, bourbon, and, most importantly, horse racing. Taiki Shuttle. Type-wise, I believe her gym would specialize in the ground typing because of her Southern Cowgirl aesthetic, and in Pokemon, the most stereotypically Southern character, Clay, is also a ground type gym leader. On her team would be a trio, as her biggest fear is being alone, which is maybe a bit too real when Naruto Brian's biggest fear is her own shadow. She would then have a Statland, as even though it isn't a ground type, she has pictures of her sheepdogs as her phone background. Additionally, the next Pokemon would be a Mudsteel as horse. Finally, her ace Pokemon would be a Camerupt, as it's kind of a cow. Honestly, I always thought it looked more like a cow than a camel, and until they make a ground type variant a Miltank, Camerupt will have to do for now. Now, the 6th gym will be slightly different, as you will get the choice between 2 Umas to face, the rivals and Toxic Yuri, Vodka and Daiwa Scarlet. Firstly, I will discuss Vodka. In the Uma Musume region, Vodka will act as a gym leader for the poison type, as her aesthetic fits in best with the punk trainer class, who mainly use poison types, and Roxy, the poison type gym leader, are black and white too. Most of the Pokemon on her team are all related to motorcycles, with her having the engine Pokemon Revavroom as her ace, and it's a Viper for the Milliard Viper motorcycle, and a Cyclizar because it is a literal motorcycle. In contrast, her rival and tsundere partner, Daiwa Scarlet, would specialise in the normal type. I thought about making her a rock type specialist, as her design is most similar to Roxanne's from Hoenn. Both of them act as stalwart model students, but I felt like the Pokemon the normal type better fit Daiwa Scarlet's aesthetic. For her team, she would have a Zangoose to rival Vodka's Viper, a Cinccino as it fits into her perfectionist prim persona, and a Noctowl as I've always associated owls with academia and learning. Then finally, the last Pokemon on her team would be a Pyro, as design-wise it looks like it had one of Daiwa Scarlet's pigtails like superimposed onto its head, but additionally it also has the ability Rivalry, which further highlights her and Vodka's competition and opposition against each other. Next up after this, we have the Psychotype gym leader, Biwa Haruhide. On her team would be Mashana for his association with science in Pokemon Black and White, with science being one of her favourite subjects at school. She would then also have a female Meowstic, as the white fur of Meowstic and Biwa's white hair fit well together aesthetically. After this, the next Pokemon team would then be a Galarian Rapidash, because horse. But also, in Biwa's free time, she writes hairspray reviews, and with Galarian Rapidash's giant mane of hair, I feel like it would be good for testing hairspray on, so I could see that also being a fit onto her team. Then finally, her ace Pokemon would be none other than Metagross, as Biwa uses her intellect to come up with a winning plan for her races, her WinQED, and Metagross having one of the highest IQs of any Pokemon in the entire game, is no wonder then why it ends up becoming her ace Pokemon. I also think the giant cross on his face reminds me of glasses, so weirdly I think they kind of look alike. In a way, I think it's like when people, their dogs look similar to themselves. I feel like Metagross and Biwa visually look similar. Now comes a challenge more difficult than any you faced before. The final mountain you must climb on your journey towards facing the Elite Four and reaching your goal of becoming the Ura Final Champion. This mountain is none other than the legendary Ogori Cap herself, the 8th and final gym leader. This gym was specialised in the steel type as a nod to ooyy great coat, but also her formidability as a racehorse against many odds. The first Pokemon on her team would be Togedemaru, as Igor experienced a Cinderella story, with even the anime starring Igor as a protagonist, having the title Cinderella Grey, which follows her journey from a small town hero to becoming one of Japan's greatest racehorses. Tying this all back to Cinderella, she is commonly aided by the mice in her home, and they play a key part in her story, so it makes sense as to why Igor would have a Togedemaru, who is most likely a mouse, or maybe a hedgehog, I'm not entirely sure, but regardless is at least mouse-like. And to further highlight ooyy humble beginnings in the countryside racing mostly regional races, and only later moving to national races, is our Corviknight, who shares a similar backstory. The reason for this is like Corviknight started with humble beginnings as a Route 1 regional bird Pokemon, who rises in the ranks and eventually evolves into perhaps one of the strongest non-legendary flying type Pokemon in the entire franchise. Her next Pokemon after this would then be Napoleon, as the trident crown on his head reminds me of ooyy own metal hair ornament, and it also symbolises Igor's position as almost royalty of in Japanese horse racing, as they are so renowned. And the only thing they are more famous for than their racing is their endless appetite, which is why she would have a Mawile on her team, as Big Mouth is better for eating. But also, I thought about putting Snorlax on her team, but I feel like Mawile would have been a steel type fits better. Finally, her ace Pokemon be a Duraludon, who I only realized whilst making this video is not the same Pokemon as Baxcalibur, and the entire time I believe they're the same. To me, they're just big Pokemon that vaguely look like dinosaur fridges. So I only realized whilst finding the pictures, I was like, oh wait, not the same. But it makes sense because they're both based off of Godzilla, with Duraludon being based off of Mechagodzilla, and with ooyy having the nickname the grey-haired monster, it makes sense for her to have who is a Pokemon based off of the king of monsters himself, Godzilla. So I see Duraludon acting as the final pseudo-legendary, the final monstrous foe you would face before reaching the Ura Elite Four. So, having now earned all 8 badges, those being the Shopkeeper badge, the Takarazuka Kinen badge, the Kukusho badge, the Satsuki Sho badge, the Hisuda Kinen badge, the Tensho Autumn badge, the Okusho badge, the Tensho Spring badge, and finally, the Rima Kimen badge, I think I said that right, from ooyy, you are now ready to face some of the strongest Umas in the entire region. But first, as with every new region comes also a new regional legendary for the protagonist to defeat or capture. Now with a legendary Pokemon by your side, you enter the Elite Four ready to Bakashin your way to victory. As the doors open before you, you lock eyes with the fiery gaze of the first Elite Four members you'll face off against. The Hot Rod herself, Maruzensky. He or she would specialize in the fire type because of her red and yellow racing silks, with the first Pokemon on her team being the dancing Pokemon Oricorio for her love of dancing to Eurobeat music. She would then have a Ninetales, as she is canonically one of the oldest Umas, thus Ninetales is said to live sometimes up to 1,000 years old. The rest of her team would pay a nod to her nickname, the Supercar. Therefore, she would have a Reverum as it is an engine, Rapidash because force, but also to represent the Ferrari logo, and finally her ace would be a Taurus, as the Lamborghini logo is a bull, and additionally Maruzensky's unique skill is LP1211M, with the LP standing for Lamborghini. After having defeated the first Elite Four members, you're then met with a frost-covered room with a single Uma stand in the center. This prestigious Uma is none other than Majuro Ramonu, the Ice-type Elite Four member, whose type specialization acts as a nod to the icy blue coloring motif found in all the Majuro designs. Her team would firstly consist of an Ice Cube, as they have similar color schemes, but also I can imagine the Penguin acting as a butler to the renowned Majuro family. Next you had a Rose Raid for Ramona's love of flowers, and a Hisuian Avalok, as it looks like a walking mountain, and Majuro Monu is named after the Lemon mountain peak in the Alps. Her team also included a Frostlass, based on the Yuki Onna, an enchanted spirit that appears in Japanese folklore during snowstorms, which ties into Ramona's nickname as the enchanting black bear. And finally, the last Pokemon on her team would be an Articuno, with a 3-pronged feather headdress on his head, symbolizing her achievement as the first filly to win the Triple Tiara. Now, having defeated a Triple Tiara winner and a 52-year-old posing as a high schooler, you'd then be tasked with the challenge of confronting a Triple Crown winner in the form of the Shadow Roll monster and Ghost-type trainer, Narita Bryan. Her nickname of the Shadow Roll monster originated from her using a Shadow Roll so as to not see her own shadow and scare herself in her races. Therefore, I believe the first Pokemon team would be the Shadow Pokemon Gengar. After this, the next Pokemon team would be a Pangoro, as they both have grass stems in their mouths and Decidueye for Nurija's love of owl cafes. Taking a closer look at her design, she is covered in bandages. Therefore, I believe she should have the mummy sarcophagus Pokemon, Coffagregious. After facing most of her team, you then be faced with your final obstacle, her Hisuian Zoroark. I chose Zoroark as her ace, as she is described as a lone wolf, and Zoroark is wolf-like. We'll just pretend it's a wolf. I think it's based more off, I suppose, a fox, but I don't know. It's close enough. After facing 8 gym leaders and 3 Elite Four members, only one Uma stands before you and the champion, the stalwart rock-type specialist and model student council member, Edgar. The first Pokemon Edgar is sent out as a Minior, as her design is based on a shooting star, with Minior itself being quite clearly based on meteors and stars. Then similar to Majora Monu, she has a love of flowers, so Edgar's next Pokemon after this would be a Leap, as it's kind of a flower if you just pretend it's weird tongue protrusions, which I believe are tongue protrusions, are petals and not whatever else they are. Her next 2 Pokemon then be a Nidoqueen because of Edgar's nickname, the Empress, for Edgar's ability to contend with many of the top stallion racers, and with every Empress they need the Royal Guard, so she'd therefore have an Aggron to act as her loyal knight. The last Pokemon at Edgar's team would be none other than Diancie, specifically in their Mega Evolved form, as her veil pays a nod to Edgar's Wedding variant form. Additionally, as Edgar is an Empress, Diancie would act as her crown jewel and her ace Pokemon to fight off any trainers who try and challenge the champion. Finally, after defeating the last of the Elite Four, you stand ready to face the final obstacle towards your goal of becoming the Ura Final Champion. This obstacle is none other than the Emperor of Japanese horse racing and your father, Symboli Rudolph. I already kind of hinted to the fact that Rudolph would be the champion, which is maybe not a twist anyone is asking for, like one of your parents being a champion. But with Rudolph acting as a student council president, it is not hard to believe she would also act as the president of the Ura Pokemon League as their champion. Additionally, Symboli Rudolph was the first undefeated Triple Crown champion, so it is evident that the vast achievements in her racing career have made her more than deserving of taking on the mantle of champion. The first Pokemon team she sent out is a Braviary, as Rudolph is named after Rudolph I, King of Germany and founder of the Habsburg family, who's associated with the eagle, specifically the double-headed eagle, the symbol of the Holy Roman Empire, which the Habsburgs continuously ruled for much of his existence. After this, next Pokemon team be Spiritomb, as both Spiritomb and Symboli Rudolph are known for their mischievous natures, which is evident in her use of dad jokes and puns. After this, she would have an Empoleon for her nickname the Emperor, with Empoleon being based on the Emperor Napoleon. Similarly, she would also have a King Gambit, not only because of their imposing presence of authority as a king, but also as the King's Gambit is a chess move and Rudolph loves chess. Another addition to her team would then be her Drampa, as it loves children so much that its Pokedex entry reads that if a child it has made friends with is bullied, Drampa will find the bully's house and burn it to the ground. Which is maybe a bit of an overreaction. Regardless, having now faced almost all Rudolph's Pokemon, only one Pokemon is left for you to face. This is none other than Lunala, who's on Rudolph's team because of his childhood nickname of Luna, which Rudolph got from his mother and the crescent-shaped marking on his head. That is the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. It was very fun making this video. I'd be interested to see, comment if there's any other Umos, what Pokemon types and Pokemon they would have, or you think I could have used different types of different Pokemon for any of the Umos I spoke about. But no, thank you so much.